Thousands of infected people rushed into the human town. The survivors had to fight for their lives with these bloodthirsty monsters. Without further ado, the main film began. The heroine Ellie was awakened by the team leader Justi because it was his turn to patrol today. Ellie walked out of the door and found that the residents of the town were all solemn. Justi explained that the patrol team found a pile of frozen bodies in the back mountain yesterday, and then 30 infected people came out of the snow. Obviously, they were resisting the low temperature in this way. God knows how many infected people are under the thick snow. In the town's consciousness hall, the manager Tommy was emphasizing the seriousness of the matter to the residents. They must be prepared for the infected project at any time. Once the alarm sounded, the old, weak, sick and disabled hid in the basement or cellar, and the adult men stood on the roof or the second floor with guns on guard. Ellie felt that Tommy was making a fuss, but it involved the life and death of the people, so they must be prepared for any eventuality. Tommy specially sent a group of patrols for this purpose. Ellie got it. Joel had already set off. Originally, the father and daughter were partners in the same group, but in order to let Ellie sleep a little longer, Joel temporarily found Dina to form a team. Ellie was shocked after hearing this. Although he and Joel had a bad relationship, this uncle still cared about her all the time as before. Ellie and the other person walked aimlessly in the snow and ice, but did not notice that there was a figure staring at them on the mountain not far away. The girl's name was Abby, and she was the remnant of the Naruto organization. She and her companions traveled thousands of miles to the town of Jackson to seek revenge for Joel. Due to the obstruction of vision at night, they thought that the lighted place was just a small camp, but after dawn, they found that the scale of this camp was comparable to that of a small town. It was harder than climbing to the sky for them to rush in and kill Joel. Abby was anxious for revenge and even thought of a radical way to ambush the patrol. The bearded man still had some rationality and thought that this matter needed to be discussed in the long run. He immediately sent Abby away and asked him to stand guard outside. Maybe the biting cold wind could calm Abby down, but he never expected that the town would send people out to patrol on such a snowy day. Abby thought of this. The plan was made before, and she decided to catch the two people. Maybe he could force Joel's whereabouts. Who knew that when he climbed down the hillside, his feet slipped and the whole person quickly rolled down from the top of the mountain. When Abby raised his head dizzily, an arm appeared in front of him. At this time, he found that there were dozens of corpses lying in this depression, including many frozen infected people. Abby had an ominous premonition in his heart, especially when he saw these infected people were still slowly crawling. He turned around and ran away. And in the previous pit, there were actually a lot of zombies crawling out of the snow. Abby moved quickly, worried that she might be torn to pieces at any time. Fortunately, there was an abandoned mine not far ahead. Abby quickly came to the wall and climbed over the ladder, but she didn't expect that the group of infected people would chase her from all directions. The huge impact instantly crushed the wire fence. Abby lay down and crawled in the snow. At this time, an infected person came in and a man pressed him under him. At the critical moment, a gunshot rang out and knocked down the infected person. The person who came turned out to be Joel, who had been hiding here in advance. He took Abby and quickly fled into the warehouse. But before she could breathe a sigh of relief, she heard Dina shouting Joel's name. Abby was shocked. He didn't expect that the enemy he had been looking for would appear in front of him. But now is not the time to take revenge, because the zombies outside may break in at any time. Abby suggested going to the cabin in the back mountain, where the terrain is higher and his companions are also there. Joel didn't think much about it, and left the mine before the zombies broke in. Seeing that the pursuit behind them was gathering more and more, Abby and the others hurried up the mountain. At this time, a large number of infected people rushed down from another hill. The two forces gathered together. They gave up chasing Joel and others, and rushed towards the town of Jackson. The blizzard was getting bigger and bigger at this time. Tommy stood on the tower and looked into the distance anxiously. He asked his men to notify the patrol team that went out and let everyone come back as soon as possible. This kind of weather is likely to cause accidents. Although Ellie received the order, the distance was too far at this time. They could only hide in the building to avoid the cold. It looked like an abandoned town. Team leader Justi was familiar with this. He took Ellie to a convenience store, which was full of dry plants, which could temporarily solve the problem of heating. Tommy, who was in the city, received an unfortunate news. Joel and Dina's patrol team lost contact, perhaps because they exceeded the signal range. Knowing that their patrol location was an abandoned mine, Tommy immediately contacted the two closest to Ellie and asked them to go and confirm Joel's safety as soon as possible. At this time, the residents in the city were still urgently deployed because of the old man. Accidentally splitting the pipe, he found a large number of cordyceps fungi hidden inside. A deep chill surged into his heart. It turned out that these fungi had never disappeared. At this time, the militia on guard also noticed something was wrong. He picked up the telescope and saw that densely packed infected people were attacking this side. The militia yelled nervously, and the next moment, the bell used for early warning rang. Tommy immediately realized that the crisis was coming. He began to remind the residents to act according to the plan. The elderly, weak, women and children hid in their basements and locked the doors, while the militia quickly returned to the battle sequence. After giving instructions for everything, Tommy climbed up the tower as soon as possible. Looking at the infected people approaching the city, the man roared in grief and anger, asking everyone to prepare for a fight to the death. They did not rush to shoot, but waited until the infected approached and the residents rolled the oil barrels out of the city. Tommy took the lead in shooting, and a large amount of fuel was scattered all over the ground. As more and more zombies gathered under the city, the survivors raised torches and threw them out with all their might. Loud noises rose from the pile of zombies, and the militiamen began to fire at full power. With the blocking of the hot fire wall, their pressure was instantly reduced. At this time, Joel also saw the fire outside the town. He was about to go back to rescue, but she said that the wooden house was not far away, and as long as he met up with his friends, they could also help in the battle. Xiao weighed the pros and cons again and again, and finally decided to take Abby back to the wooden house first. The militiamen in the town were still struggling to kill the infected, but Tang Ming soon realized that something was wrong. These infected people turned around and ran to areas with weaker defenses. To make matters worse, there was a giant among the monsters. This was the final form of the infected. With his repeated collisions, a gap soon appeared in the fence, and a large number of infected people filed in. Tommy felt that it was not good. He was evenly connected to the roof and prepared for battle. He held a flamethrower and stood on the path of the enemy. As these infected people were smart, they knew to hide in nearby houses and climb onto the roof to fight back. At this time, Tommy saw it. The giant was about to rush into the house where his wife was. He roared angrily and fired several shots, attracting the enemy's hatred. Tommy originally planned to use the terrain to get rid of him, but he didn't expect to be poisoned by debris at the end of the alley. The man had no way to retreat, so he could only choose to fight the giant. Hot flames spurted out, but the huge monster was injured but not dead. Tommy fought and retreated. Unknowingly, the fuel of the flame gun had run out. Deep despair surged in his heart. Just as he sat down and waited for death, the giant collapsed to the ground. At this time, the residents had already stood together with the infected. Tommy's wife ran into the warehouse and struggled to open the dog cages in the city. This was also one of the means for the town to deal with the infected. Without the protection of the city wall, their combat effectiveness was much stronger than that of the residents. Both sides fell into the cold death vortex. At this time, Joel and others had already arrived at the wooden house in the back mountain. Abby's companions hurriedly welcomed everyone in. Joel was concerned about the town and told everyone to take weapons and get on the road as soon as possible, but Abby's face suddenly sank. He told his companions that the man was Joel. The next moment, everyone raised their guns and surrounded the other party, and even Dina was tied up tightly. Joel was confused at this time. Well, Abby and his people did not look like predators, but more like well-trained warriors. When Joel heard Abby say the word fire, he suddenly realized that he had met his enemy. Abby asked someone to give Dina an injection of tranquilizer. It seems that he still has some bottom line. Even if she seeks revenge, she will not affect innocent people, but Joel in front of him is in trouble. The male doctor he killed casually turned out to be Abby's biological father. Over the years, almost every night, she dreams of returning to the fire camp headquarters and seeing her father's horrible death. Abby even has some memories in her heart. If time could go back, she would never walk into the infirmary where her father is. Now that the murderer of her father is in front of him, Abby's mood is much calmer. She once made a promise in front of her father's grave, that is, to let Joel die slowly and painfully. Abby slowly pulled out a golf club and swung it hard at Joel. The miserable screams were mixed in the blizzard. Ellie, who was looking for Joel, seemed to notice something was wrong. She followed the traces to the cabin and saw Joel and Dina's horse. Ellie quietly sneaked in with a gun in hand. Screams could be heard faintly from the innermost room. She pushed open the door and saw Joel's body, but unfortunately, he was quickly subdued by several strong men. Joel had been beaten beyond recognition by Abby at this time, and even the golf club was broken into 2 pieces. Ellie loudly encouraged him to stand up, but Joel lay on the ground motionless until she saw Abby pick up half of the club. Ellie seemed to realize something and kept shouting no, but she could only watch the club inserted into Joel's neck. Ellie roared angrily, "I'm going to kill all of you." But in the end, he was just beaten up. After Abby and the others left, she quickly crawled to Joel's side, but unfortunately the uncle who had been protecting him was no longer breathing. At this time, in the small town of Jackson, the residents finally wiped out the infected, but they also paid a heavy price for it. Ellie and the other 2 rode horses in the snow, dragging Joel's body behind them, leaving traces of subtitles on the snow. The above is the content of The Last of Us Season 2.